Welcome to Vanguard, where humans aren't the underdogs. We're the endgame. Enjoy the journey.
The screech of a malfunctioning klaxon ripped through the dimly lit corridor, jolting Jace steel wind from beneath the maintenance panel where he'd been working for 6 grueling hours. The wrench slipped from his hand, clattering against the grated floor as he slammed his head into the underside of the bulkhead. Sparks flew as circuits overloaded, and the stale scent of ionized metal filled the air. Maintenance drone Steel Wind chimed a synthetic voice in his ear, clear and devoid of empathy. Your efficiency rating has dropped by 3.7% this cycle. This deviation will be noted in your permanent record. Jace wiped sweat and grime from his brow, smearing black streaks across his face. "Thanks for the update, Vox," he muttered, reaching for his tool belt. His gray jumpsuit was soaked through stain beyond redemption. The Infernum Station logo, a stylized flame encircled by chains, was barely visible beneath the grease. Just like him, Invisible disregarded chained in place. His reflection stared back at him from a polished steel wall panel. A young man in theory, 28 years old, but in practice, he looked over 40. His copper hair had dulled to rust and fatigue, etched canyons beneath his eyes. He looked like every other drone on this god-forsaken orbital prison. But beneath the dirt and machinery was a name they whispered only behind closed doors: Steel Wind, bastard son of Grand Enforcer Vortex. A genetic impurity, a secret mistake of the system. A distant explosion snapped him from his spiral. The station trembled with a low groan, lights flickering across the corridor. Not a drill. "Vox, what was that?" he barked. "Unidentified spacecraft breach in Sector 47B. All maintenance personnel are instructed to remain at assigned duties. Enforcer units are responding. Sector 47B. Just 2 levels down. One of the most neglected and restricted sections in the entire station. It was where broken systems went to die and where secrets were buried." Jace's curiosity surged. Years of monotony and repression flared into reckless defiance. He toggled his internal implant and replied to the AI responding to unexpected system failure in Sector 47B. "No such alert has been registered," Vox replied. Jace didn't wait. He tapped the hidden switch behind his ear, activating the makeshift scrambler he'd built from scrap. The AI's voice dissolved into static. He had 30 minutes before the system reset. He slipped into the maintenance shafts, his footsteps muffled against insulated plating. He moved like he'd done this before, because he had. The life of a drone was numb and routine, but curiosity had always been Jace's defiance. The air grew different as he approached Sector 47B. Hotter. Ozone mixed with something unfamiliar, an aroma almost floral like burning orchids. His pulse quickened. Around the final bend, the damage came into view. A spacecraft, sleek and curved like an ancient sea predator, jutted through the outer hull. Emergency force fields shimmered around the breach. The vessel's surface breathed with strange iridescence, like the skin of a living creature caught between liquid and metal. Its hatch was open, not cut by tools, ripped from the inside. A glint on the floor caught his eye, drops of purple almost luminescent, leading away from the wreckage. Blood. Not red, not human. Jace's breath caught as he followed the trail. The droplets became smears leading toward a ventilation shaft. A low groan echoed from within. "Turn back. Alert security. Stay alive." The voice of self-preservation screamed, but something deeper, the same voice that had whispered back when he was 5 and watched his mother being taken away, growled, "Don't you dare look away again." He pried the shaft's access panel open and peered into the darkness. 2 eyes met his, bright blue, glowing, inhuman. "Help me," whispered a voice not through his ears but straight into his mind. His arms moved before his brain caught up. He reached in and felt skin warm, soft, and not human. He pulled her free, and everything changed. The alien woman collapsed against him, Her breathing labored. She was humanoid, but undeniably alien. Her skin was a rich violet that shimmered with cosmic patterns under the emergency lighting, like constellations drifting across a living night sky. Her face was haunting, high cheekbones, full lips parted in pain, and those eyes galaxies trapped in twin oceans. Her garment, torn and clinging, was made of silver strands that barely covered her body. Blood amethyst and luminous leaked from a wound on her side. "You're hurt," Jace said, kneeling beside her. She didn't respond. Instead, she reached up with trembling fingers and touched his face. "Jace Steel Wind," she whispered. "I finally found you." He flinched, heart hammering. "How do you know my name?" She opened her mouth to answer, but then the station screamed again. A new alarm. 3 pulses. "Enforcer deployment. All personnel be advised," came the voice of Commander Krell, cold commanding. "A dangerous alien asset has escaped containment. It is to be considered highly valuable and extremely dangerous. Harboring said asset is punishable by immediate void execution." The woman's eyes widened with panic. "They can't find me," she gasped. "You don't understand what they'll do." Jace's mind raced. Harboring an alien was a death sentence, so was defying Krell. But something about her knowing his name, about the sheer desperation in her voice cut through the fear. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded. "Then we move. Now." He wrapped her arm over his shoulder, supporting her weight. Together they limped into the maze of forgotten corridors, deeper into the underbelly of Infernum Station, into the shadows, into the unknown, and into a destiny that would change everything. Jace's quarters were barely a closet crammed between 2 defunct air scrubbers and a water recycling relay, but the door locked a luxury in Infernum Station's lower decks, and he had personally rigged it with an encryption scrambler that would stall any enforcer long enough to make a difference. The alien woman collapsed onto the bunk with a sigh, her body trembling with exhaustion. Jace crouched beside her, rummaging through a small metal case hidden beneath a false floor tile. He pulled out a cobbled-together med kit, mostly black market contraband, and stolen field supplies. "You need medical attention," he said, pulling a bandage from its sterile seal. "No time," she whispered, her voice hoarse but still melodically resonant. "They're already scanning for my biosignature." He paused. "You said my name. You knew who I was. How?" She opened her eyes and studied him as though memorizing every detail of his face. "Because in my timeline, we met. We were bonded." He froze. "I've never seen you before in my life. Not here. Not now." She winced, clutching her side. "I came from your future, Jace. In my time, you're more than this. You're the spark that ignites a rebellion. The man who changes everything." Jace barked a disbelieving laugh. "Right. And I'm also the Emperor's personal massage therapist." But her gaze didn't flinch. "Your father is Grand Enforcer Vortex. Your mother was Catherine Steel Wind, a tech specialist from the outer colonies. They met during the Century Uprising one night. When she became pregnant, Vortex erased her record, sent her to Mining Outpost K-12, and buried you here." He dropped the med kit. "No one knows that," he whispered. "No one." "I do," she said softly. "In my world, you become something they fear more than death itself." He stared at her, unblinking. "My name is Tiona Thorncrest," she continued. "I'm Nixian. My people once ruled across 12 systems. Now we're scattered hunted. You helped us fight back. But you died before we could win." Jace's throat tightened. The absurdity of it all crashed into him. Alien women from the future, hidden rebellion's destiny. He wasn't a hero. He fixed toilets. Before he could respond, Tiona suddenly sat up, pain etching across her features. "I need to remove this," she muttered, gesturing to her torn garment. "What, you're injured? That's Nixian. Cellular regeneration is disrupted by synthetic material," she explained, already tugging at the fabric. "We need skin contact with ambient energy to heal." Jace spun around, face flushed. A little warning next time would be great. Is human nudity taboo? She asked, genuinely curious. Our records didn't emphasize that aspect of your culture. It's complicated, he muttered, staring hard at a rust spot on the bulkhead. You can turn around now. He hesitated, then turned. She had wrapped herself in his blanket, though it barely covered her shoulders. The wound on her side already looked better, edges closing, glowing faintly. So he said slowly, "You're from the future. Prove it. Tell me something that's going to happen." "Time doesn't work like that," Tiona replied. "By coming here, I've already altered probability streams. But I can tell you what would have happened without me." She looked him in the eyes. "In 3 days during your maintenance rotation in Sector 23, you would have discovered a power fluctuation in the Enforcer barracks. Investigation would have led you to proof of the purge, a station-wide culling of everyone deemed genetically impure, including you." Jace's mouth went dry. "The purge has been rumored for years, but no one's ever found real evidence. You would have, and they would have killed you." Her eyes softened. "In my timeline, your death sparked a revolution. That ultimately failed. I came back to make sure it succeeds." Jace dropped onto the floor back against the bunk. "Why me?" "Because you're not just anyone," she said. "You're a hybrid. Your genetics make you the only compatible host for this." She reached under the blanket and pulled out a small metallic sphere no larger than a marble. It pulsed with light that shifted between deep purple and radiant gold. "What is that?" "The Nexus Core, quantum symbiote tech far beyond anything the Enforcers have. It connects to the memories of all previous hosts across dimensions." He stared at it. "That's Enforcer tech. They only work with purebloods. I'm a reject." "That's what they want you to believe," Tiona said fiercely. "But it's a lie. The most powerful hosts are always hybrids. Diverse genetics are the key. The hegemony suppresses that truth to stay in control." A sudden pounding at the door shattered the moment. "Maintenance drone." Steel wind came a mechanical voice. "Random genetic scan in progress. Open your door immediately." Jace's blood turned to ice. "Genetic scan," he whispered. "That's not scheduled for another week." "They've accelerated the timeline," Tiona said, voice tight. "They're searching for me. And anyone who helped me." Jace pointed to the storage compartment under his bunk. "Hide." She shook her head. "They'll detect me. These scans can read Nixian biology." She pressed the Nexus core into his palm. It pulsed. "Don't let them find this. Whatever happens." "What are you going to do?" he asked. She smiled sadly. "Create a diversion." Before he could stop her, she secured the blanket tighter and moved to the door. "Wait." She turned one last time, her cosmic eyes burning into him. "In my timeline, we were very close. Before everything went wrong." Then she opened the door. The hallway outside Jace's quarters exploded into motion the moment Tiona stepped out. 3 Enforcer drones hovered in formation, scanning beams, crisscrossing her body, locking onto her biosignature. "Unregistered alien life form detected," they announced in unison. "Subject identified as escaped asset NT-427. Stand down for capture." Tiona didn't resist. She lifted her chin and let the blanket fall to her feet, revealing her violet form to the cold, sterile corridor and its mechanical captors. The Enforcers surrounded her, weapons aim protocols activated. She could have run. She didn't. Jace stood frozen in the shadows just inside his quarters, the Nexus core burning like a coal in his palm. Her last look still echoed in his mind. "We were close," she had said. "Before everything went wrong." He didn't even know her, and yet the thought of those drones dragging her away churned something deep and ancient inside him. But he didn't move, not yet. Tiona was escorted through the lower levels, paraded like a trophy. Rumors spread like wildfire, an alien prisoner captured after breaching the station hall. Speculation bloomed in every corridor. Who was she? Why was she here? Why had she whispered a human's name? By the time the Enforcers reached Central Plaza, the whispers had turned into a wave. Her name hadn't spread. His had. Jace. It started with her voice, quiet, barely audible. Chained to a metal post in the center of the square, she stood under glaring lights, wearing a translucent detention jumpsuit that did little to shield her from either the cold or the crowd's curiosity. Her wounds had been treated barely. Her eyes, still vibrant, scanned the gathered mass with eerie calm. And then she whispered again, "Jace." The crowd shifted uneasily. Jace. The name rippled outward. People murmured to one another. Who was Jace? Why did she keep saying his name? Jace stood among them, hood pulled low, heart pounding. Every time she spoke, the Nexus core throbbed in his boot, like it recognized her voice, her defiance, like it wanted out. Then the real punishment began. Commander Krell stepped into view, armored and amplified. His voice boomed across the plaza like a war drum. "Let this be a lesson," he growled. The alien infiltrator sought to corrupt the hegemony from within, spreading lies, infecting our systems with false hope. She claimed a maintenance drone would bring down our great order. He turned toward her with theatrical disgust. Before she is executed, she will know the price of that deception. An enforcer stepped forward with a bucket filled with industrial waste. The first handful splattered against Tiona's cheek, trailing sludge down her violet skin. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. Krell gestured. Enforcers moved through the crowd, pressing containers into the hands of hesitant citizens. Participate, they barked. Or be marked for additional screening. Trash flew, food scraps, rotting chemical cloth, broken pieces of junk tech. The air filled with the stink of humiliation. Still Tiona stood. Still she whispered, "Jace." Jace's fists clenched at his sides. The core in his boot grew hotter. His breath hitched as he felt it spread, not pain, not heat, but awareness. Memories that weren't his. A battlefield. Alien terrain. His body moved with perfect precision, dodging energy blades. A voice screaming orders. A lover dying in his arms. A war lost. Then another memory. A different world. A different Jace. Fractal memories. Thousands of them. The core had awakened. His vision shimmered. The crowd faded into gray. Only Tiona remained, her name for him, like a beacon in the storm. The core pulsed again, and this time it gave him clarity. This was her plan. The public display. The whispered name. She wasn't pleading. She was building a myth, creating a symbol. And now she needed the symbol to step forward. Time stopped as Jace stepped into the light. The crowd parted before him as though drawn by gravity. His hood fell away, revealing the grease-stained jumpsuit, the scar above his brow, the rust-red hair. A nobody. And yet the core pulsed in resonance with every step. Krell turned. "Maintenance drone steel wind," he sneered. "How appropriate that you've come to watch your alien mistress squirm." Jace didn't flinch. That's enough. The words didn't sound like his own. They were stronger, firmer, certain. Krell's laughter echoed. "You're nothing. A mongrel mistake. You think you can stop this because she whispered your name like a bedtime story." Jace stepped closer. "My name is Jace Steelwind," he said, voice steady. "Son of Grand Enforcer Vortex and Catherine Steelwind of the Outer Colonies." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "And I'm here to inform you," he said, stepping even closer, "that the purge is canceled." The enforcers raised their weapons. Jace moved before they could fire. The core guided him. A sidestep, a deflection, a precise strike to the armor's power coupling. One enforcer dropped, another lunged. Jace twisted, used the man's weight against him, and brought him crashing into his partner. Gasps turned to cheers. The myth had become real. From her post, Tiona's eyes glimmered, and the Nexus core surged. But then, a bolt of energy fired from Krell's weapon. Jace turned too slow. Except he wasn't. The core calculated the trajectory. His body moved accordingly. The shot missed, striking the post behind Tiona and triggering the restraint release. Her chains clattered to the ground. Krell cursed. "Seize them both." Tiona didn't hesitate. She launched forward, spinning through the air, her bare foot connecting with Krell's helmet. A sharp crack echoed as the reinforced shell fractured. "You're dead," he spat. "Both of you. The entire hegemony will hunt you." Jace felt the core pulsing, and with it came words foreign but true. "Tell my father," Jace said, eyes glowing with borrowed light, "that his son is coming for him. And this time, I won't be alone." The crowd scattered like frightened insects running for cover as alarms blared across Central Plaza. But some, especially those closest to Jace, stood frozen. They had just watched a maintenance drone defeat armed enforcers with movements too fluid, too calculated to be anything but superhuman. "Death God," someone whispered. The name spread like smoke on dry wind. Jace didn't pause. He grabbed Tiona's hand, the heat of her skin, and the thrum of her pulse reassuring in their chaos. "Move!" he shouted. They fled through side alleys and forgotten utility ducts, the sounds of pursuing enforcers fading behind them. Tiona, though free, was far from stable. Her steps faltered, her breathing ragged. Her violet skin glistened with sweat and bruises. "We can't go back to my quarters," Jace muttered. "They'll be crawling with drones." "I know a place," she said. "Sublevel 19, Junction 7B. He raised an eyebrow. "That's a water processing node, abandoned years ago." Her lips curled into the faintest smile. "In your timeline, we used it as a meeting point. Looks like that part hasn't changed." By the time they reached the junction, Jace's adrenaline had begun to wear off, and the core was growing louder in his mind. Not voices, not words, but impressions, ideas, tactics, threat assessments, possibilities playing out like holograms inside his skull. Tiona guided him through a rusted access panel into a hidden chamber. Inside, 5 figures turned as they entered. One was Sarma, a fellow maintenance worker Jace barely recognized outside her uniform. The others were strangers, each carrying the hard stare of someone who'd survived too long on too little. "He came," said an older man Jace identified as Darrowhead of Waste Management. "Doesn't mean we can trust him," snapped a woman with cybernetic eye implants. "He's Vortex's spawn." "Shut up," Lena Sarma shot back. "He's one of us." One of what Jace asked, stepping forward. "People who know about the purge," Sarma said evenly. The word hit him like a brick. Darrow crossed his arms. "It's real. And it's happening in less than 3 days. You're on the list, Jace. So are we." Tiona settled on a crate, wincing as she adjusted her position. Jace hovered beside her, torn between rage, disbelief, and a dawning sense of purpose. "You're saying they're just going to kill everyone with the wrong genes?" he asked. "They've done it before," Lena said. "On smaller stations, quietly. Erase the records, paid off the survivors. We've been preparing," Darrow added, "waiting for someone to light the match." Everyone looked at Jace. He took a step back. "I'm not your savior," No Sarma said, "but she thinks you are." All eyes turned to Tiona. "She told Krell you would bring down the hegemony," Lena added, crossing her arms. "And now everyone's heard it." Jace rubbed his face. "Why would you say that?" "You painted a target on me." "She painted a legend," Darrow corrected. "People already talk, that stunt in the plaza. It's spreading, fast." "We're not asking you to be a hero," Sarma said. "We just need to know if you're willing to fight." Jace didn't answer. They spent the rest of the night laying low. Tiona rested wrapped in thermal blankets and meditating in a way Jace found both eerie and beautiful. Her skin glowing faintly as her body regenerated at an accelerated rate. When morning came, Sarma returned with grim news. "They've accelerated everything," she said. "The hegemony's trying to crush the story before it spreads. Tiona's been relocated for public display." Jay stared at her. "What?" Central Plaza, Sarma confirmed. "Early morning. Chained again. They're calling it a deterrent. A public example of what happens to traitors and their sympathizers. Lena scoffed. They still think we're afraid. Darrow frowned. We might be. Jace stood. Not anymore. The plaza was already crowded by the time Jace arrived, hood low-face shadowed. The atmosphere felt different, charged. Not just fear, anticipation. Tiona stood at the center once more, chained to the post. This time, she wore the infamous Class 4 containment suit, a transparent jumpsuit that revealed every bruise, every mark, every inch of her vulnerability. Her skin had dulled to a pale lavender hue, her strength clearly depleted. They had drugged her, controlled her, but her eyes remained bright. She scanned the crowd, slowly, deliberately. "Let this be your reminder," Krell announced, pacing with theatrical swagger. "No matter how far they come, no matter how loud they scream, aliens do not belong among us, especially not in our beds." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The crowd wasn't unified. Some laughed. Others frowned. A few looked around as if expecting someone to speak up. Or act. Krell gestured. An enforcer approached with a bucket of waste. The same protocol. A calculated show of shame. This alien whore dared to love a half-breed. A genetic aberration. So let her feel what the hegemony feels: disgust. The first handful of filth struck her across the cheek. She did not flinch. Jace's breath caught in his throat. They shoved more containers into the hands of civilians. Participate, the enforcers barked, or be marked for genetic screening. And so the garbage flew again. Food scraps, filthy cloth, sludge. Through it all, Tiona stood tall, silent, stoic. Then she opened her mouth and whispered, "Jace." The word cut through the filth. "Jace." It echoed louder. "Jace." People stopped throwing. They turned. "Who is Jace?" someone whispered. "Why does she keep saying that name?" Jace closed his eyes. The Nexus core flared. His breath hitched as his skin tingled, his muscles vibrating with raw energy. Memories surged into his mind. Foreign battlefields, ancient chants, rituals of warriors long dead. Knowledge of how to disable enforcer armor, how to hack drone protocols, how to dismantle control grids. The core wasn't just showing him, it was activating him. "Jace." Tiona's eyes found him. The core pulsed, hotter, stronger, sharper. And in that moment, he understood her plan. The plaza, the chains, the trash. It was all theater. A masterstroke of psychological warfare. She wasn't begging for rescue. She was building a legend. She was creating him, the death god of Infernum. Time dilated. Jace wasn't aware of taking a breath, or moving, or deciding. One moment he was in the crowd, trembling with fury and helpless awe. The next, he was walking, no emerging from the mass of spectators, like a force of gravity given form. The name rippled around him. Jace. Jace. Jace Steel Wind. He felt the Nexus core burning in his boot, sinking with every cell in his body, vibrating through his bones. When he stepped into the clearing around the post, the crowd fell silent. Even Krell turned, his confident smirk faltering. "Who dares?" Jace reached up and pulled back his hood. Gasps, recognition, fear, and something else. Hope. Tiona's lips parted, her body slack from drugs, but her eyes still found his. Krell's expression twisted. "Steel Wind. You've signed your death warrant." "I've signed yours," Jace replied calmly. Then the core surged. A flash of blue-gold light burst from his skin, tendrils of energy wrapping around his limbs, etching patterns into his flesh. Tattoos of unknown design and meaning. His senses expanded. He could feel the kinetic vibrations of every footfall in the square, calculate the air displacement from enforcer movements, map the trajectory of each possible strike before they happened. "Seize him," Krell barked. Two enforcers lunged. Jace moved like water turning to lightning. He spun, ducked, and drove a fist into the first man's chest, hitting the exact point where armor shielding met power relay. The armor short-circuited, sparking wildly. The second enforcer swung a baton. Jace caught his wrist mid-air, twisted, and used the man's momentum to flip him onto the concrete. The thud echoed like a warning shot from the gods. The crowd backed away, stunned. More enforcers charged. The core took over, feeding Jace knowledge from 1,000 warriors, ancient spear forms from sand world assassins, hand-to-hand strikes from low-grav pit fights, neural pressure points used by silent tribes. Jace danced through them all, not like a man fighting for his life, but like a conductor commanding an orchestra of chaos. In less than 30 seconds, 7 enforcers were on the ground, some groaning, others unconscious. The last 2 hesitated. Jace's eyes met theirs. The filaments on his arms flared. They ran. Krell pulled his sidearm with a roar and fired directly at Jace's heart. The core slowed time again. Jace watched the bolt move like syrup through the air and leaned precisely 2 inches to the left. The shot missed, slamming into the post behind Tiona and striking the restraint controls. Her chains hissed and fell. Tiona stumbled forward, drugged but smiling. Nice timing. I learned from the best, Jace said. Krell stepped back, reaching for another weapon, but he was too slow. Tiona launched forward, flipping mid-air, and drove her heel into Krell's chest. The impact cracked his armor plate and sent him crashing into the ground. He coughed blood, struggling to rise. "You mutants," he gasped. "The entire hegemony will—" Yeah. Jace stepped forward. His voice carried across the plaza. "Tell my father that his son is coming for him." The plaza erupted, not in screams, in cheers. People threw down their buckets, shoved aside enforcer guards, and surged toward the fallen officers. Sarma appeared in the chaos, followed by Lena Darrow and more of the underground resistance. They rallied behind Jace like instinct, like destiny. Tiona grabbed his arm, her voice low. "We need to go. This moment is yours, but it's just the beginning." Jace nodded. They vanished into the chaos together. Later that night, in a forgotten server maintenance room deep in Infernum's belly, Jace sat alone on the floor, shaking. The core still pulsed within him, alive, aware, hungry. The blue-gold filaments under his skin flickered with every heartbeat. Tiona entered quietly, kneeling beside him. She studied his face, then gently touched his shoulder. "You're not broken. This is normal." "This isn't normal," he said hoarsely. "I fought 10 trained enforcers like I'd done it my whole life." "You did," she whispered. "Or rather, versions of you did." He turned to her, eyes wide. "The core," she explained. "It doesn't just enhance, it remembers. It stores the neural patterns of previous hosts, physical skills, emotional resilience, survival instincts. Every time you sink more of them, join you." He swallowed hard. "It feels like they're inside my head." "They are. But they don't control you. You guide them." He looked down at his hands, still trembling. "Why me?" "Because you're the first host in centuries to be fully compatible. You're the fusion of 2 bloodlines, hegemony and Nixian. You're the anomaly they tried to erase." Jace leaned back against the wall, eyes closed. "I'm not ready." Tiona tilted his chin toward her. "You're more ready than you know, and you're not alone." She took his hand, pressed it over his heart, then placed her palm over his. The core responded, energy flowing between them, a sync of thought and feeling. "We just turned a slave plaza into a battlefield," she said, "and you turned a whisper into a war cry." Outside, throughout the station, stories were already spreading. Of the alien woman who whispered a name through filth and pain. Of the maintenance drone who became a god of death. Of a rebellion no longer whispered, but shouted. 3 days after the plaza uprising, Infernum Station no longer felt like the same place. Graffiti marked the walls of the lower levels. "The death god lives. Jace will return. Purity is a lie." Resistance cells multiplied, driven not by orders but by momentum. The system that once suffocated them was bleeding cut by its own forgotten children. But the hegemony wasn't surrendering. Tiona stood before a crude map laid out on an old maintenance table. Red lights blinked on several marked areas. "They're deploying shadow squads," she said. "No insignias, no IDs. We lost a contact on subdeck 12, another in the hydroponics dome." Jace clenched his jaw. The Corps fed him scenarios, each one more ruthless than the last. "They're trying to put the genie back in the bottle." "They can't," Sarma said. "People are waking up." "They'll burn the whole damn station down before they admit they're losing," Lena muttered. Tiona nodded. "Which is why we need something bigger than rumors. Something undeniable." She turned to Jace. "The archives." Jace's breath caught. "The archives of origin. An off-limits vault buried beneath the council chambers, rumored to hold secrets from before the hegemony's founding. Some said it stored alien relics, others forbidden tech. But Tiona knew the truth. Inside, she said, are files that prove the purge isn't population control, it's genetic cleansing. The hegemony doesn't just fear mutation, they fear the truth about where their power came from. She looked him in the eyes. "They fear you." To access the archives, Jace needed a way in and attention, not covert infiltration, a distraction. The underground fighting arena was perfect. Located on sub-level 5, the pit was officially non-existent but privately tolerated by the council. There, citizens of every caste gambled on blood, vented their rage, and forgot their chains for a few brutal hours. And among the audience sat the powerful, disguised, but ever watching. "I enter as a fighter," Jace said. "Win a few matches. Draw attention." "You'll draw more than that," Lena warned. "Word is Vortex himself's been watching the fights lately." "That's what I'm counting on," he replied. They forged a new identity for him, the Phantom. No face, no origin, just mystery and power. In the holding cage, Jace watched his first opponent, Cracks the Demolisher, pace like a predator. Cybernetic implants bulked out the ex-enforcer's already massive frame. "You'll be dead in 60 seconds, Cracks growled. Jace said nothing. The fight began. For the first round, he played weak, sloppy. A newcomer overwhelmed. He took hits, real ones. Let his ribs bruise. Let his blood drip. The Corps healed him quickly, but pain was part of the act. By round 2, the crowd leaned in. By round 3, he struck. A single surgically precise blow to Crax's elbow where metal met muscle. The limb sparked and died. Then the other arm. Then the legs. The Demolisher collapsed. Jace didn't finish him. He turned to the crowd, lifted his fists, and let the core briefly shimmer under his skin. The arena exploded in screams. He had become myth incarnate. In the VIP booth, hidden by shadow and filters, Grand Enforcer Vortex sat forward. Beside him, Commander Krell leaned close. "It's him, I know it." Vortex said nothing. Jace had one chance. After the match guards arrived, dressed not as enforcers, but as council security. "The council requests your presence," their leader said. "No negotiation." Tiona's voice rang in his mind through their shared core link. "Stick to the plan." He followed the guards. The council chambers gleamed with opulence, a grotesque contrast to the station's starving levels. 7 figures sat on high platforms, faces hooded, voices distorted. Vortex sat in the center, armor gleaming. Jace stepped into the light. "Remove your hood," Vortex ordered. He did. Gasps, recognition, fury. Commander Krell lunged forward. "This is treason." Jace smiled calmly. "I prefer the term revelation." Krell slammed his fist on the table. "Your combat abilities mimic classified enforcer training. Maybe you should have trained better." Jace shot back. The council murmured. Then Vortex spoke. "What is your name?" "You gave it to me," Jace said. 28 years ago, before you sent my mother to die in the mines of K-12. Silence thundered across the chamber. Krell reached for a weapon. Jace moved faster. His palm slammed against a hidden panel near the council platform Tiona had told him where. The core linked bypassing security protocols. The floor rumbled. A massive circular door behind the throne creaked open. "The archives," Jace whispered. He sprinted inside as alarms blared and guards screamed. Doors sealed behind him, locked by the core itself. Inside the archives, ancient servers hummed with forbidden power. Jace approached the main interface, core flaring in his chest. Files downloaded into his mind, centuries of classified knowledge. The Nixians hadn't been conquered. They'd been stolen. Their DNA was the foundation of the symbiote tech the Enforcers used. Their quantum resonance hunted, harvested, enslaved. The purge wasn't about fear. It was about erasure. So no one would remember where the hegemon's strength had come from. And no one would realize that hybrid offspring like Jace, those with Nixian and human blood, were the key to evolving beyond even that power. Behind him, the door hissed open. Vortex entered alone. He didn't attack, son, he said. Jace turned, every nerve burning. "I didn't abandon you," Vortex said softly. "I hid you from those who would have ripped you apart. You made me a janitor," Jace spat. "A ghost." No, Vortex stepped closer. "I made you perfect. The culmination of 1,000 years of design." Jace's hand hovered over his sidearm. "You're not an accident," Vortex whispered. "You're the future." Jace's core surged with rage and clarity. "No, I'm your reckoning." Vortex's words echoed in the chamber, thick with power and poisoned affection. "You're not an accident," he said again, voice gentle, almost fatherly. "You're the culmination of everything we built." Jace stood at the heart of the archives, the core glowing bright beneath his skin, each beat syncing with quantum pulses thrumming through the floor. The chamber itself hummed in resonance with his presence, as if it knew its secrets had been uncovered. "You built this," Jace said, not looking at him. "You built me." Vortex took a step forward. "To save us. To lead us into a new era. You're the only one who can fully integrate with the core. Your mother's DNA, her Nixian blood. It made you something unique." Jace turned slowly, eyes glowing. "You mean expendable?" "No," Vortex replied, steel returning to his voice. "I mean essential." Jace felt the core calculating, mapping the emotional tension, predicting the likely confrontation. One option glared back at him: in crimson, kill the father. High success rate, high cost. Instead, Jace reached toward the central console. "I've uploaded everything he said. The truth, the purge, the genocide of the Nixians, the hegemon's lies." Vortex mask slip beat. "You'll destabilize the entire sector. That's the point." Jace tapped the final command. Every terminal on Infernum Station blinked. Across the entire station, upper levels, lower corridors, black market terminals, children's entertainment screens, his voice echoed. "This is Jace Steel Wind." The broadcast captured him perfectly, standing at the center of the forbidden archives, bathed in blue-gold light, the core alive inside him. "The Council has authorized a mass extermination under the name of the Purge. Not to protect you, but to destroy those whose blood threatens their control." Images flashed behind him. Genetic maps harvested Nixian organs, purge orders signed by Council hands. "They lied to you," he said. "To all of us." In the streets, in the shipyards, in the ration lines, eyes lifted. Hands froze. Hearts raced. And in the council chamber, Krell screamed, "Shut it down." "Too late," Jace said, facing Vortex again. "They've already seen." Vortex stepped forward slowly. "You think this ends here?" "No," Jace replied. "It begins here." Krell burst into the archive's armor, fully activated prototype combat suit, humming with stolen core energy. "You pathetic freak," he snarled. "You've doomed us all." Jace's eyes narrowed. "You did that when you betrayed the people you were meant to protect." Krell fired. Jace moved. The core surged surrounding him in a living exoskeleton of quantum armor. He dodged blasts, absorbed impacts, struck with precision no human could survive. The chamber cracked around them, pillars crumbling, light sparking, history itself shaking. But Krell was fast, augmented, ruthless, and angry. "You should have died with that Nixian whore," he screamed, launching a plasma blade at Jace's head. Jace caught it barehanded. The core dissolved the weapon on contact. He struck back, fist to jaw, elbow to ribs, a surge of energy that fried Krell's internal tech. Krell staggered, then fell. Vortex raised his hand. Jace turned core, still blazing. "Don't," he warned. But Vortex wasn't drawing a weapon. He lowered his hand. "I failed you, but you've become what I couldn't." Jace stared at him, then turned and walked away. Tiona waited at the entrance, her eyes fierce and shining. "You did it," she said softly. "No," Jace replied. "We did." They fled the archives just as secondary explosions rocked the levels below. The system, enraged by exposure, had begun to purge itself code terminals people. But it was too late. The people had seen. Sarma's voice came through the comms, tight with urgency. "Void commandos incoming. Elite drop units. Full-scale suppression response. You've got 10 minutes tops." Tiona's face darkened. "They're bringing war." Jace looked at her, then at the rebels now gathering across their hidden strongholds. Sarma, Lena, Darrow, dozens of others, miners, techs, janitors, even children. "They'll kill everyone," Lena muttered. "Not if we stop them first," Jace said. "How?" Jace turned to Tiona. "We activate the core. Full sync." Her breath caught. "Jace, I know the risk. I've seen the math. The core, it can generate a quantum disruption field strong enough to scramble void commando implants and tech, but only if it has enough energy." "Enough? Me." She moved toward him, cupping his face in both hands. "You'll burn yourself out. Maybe worse." He met her eyes. "If I die saving them, that's worth it." She pulled him into a kiss, desperate, soft, electric. The core flared, surrounding them both in a halo of light. "Then we do it together," she whispered. In the heart of the rebellion's command post, Jace stood alone as the core activated fully. Blue-gold light erupted from his chest, forming waves of energy that washed across the floor, the walls, the station itself. Void commandos crashed into the hub. The light hit them. Their armor shorted. Their weapons dissolved. Their neural links collapsed. And in the eye of the storm stood Jace, no longer man, no longer myth, but more. The death god of Infernum. The quantum field expanded until the commandos lay unmoving, and Jace collapsed. Tiona screamed his name as she rushed to him. His body convulsed, blue-gold filaments crawling beneath his skin like living circuitry. His eyes flickered, mouth bleeding light. "He's dying," Sarma said, horrified. "No," Tiona said. She reached into the core with her own link, drawing the nanites into herself, splitting the burden. Light flared between them, painful, brilliant, eternal. He gasped, then breathed. Tiona fell beside him, alive, linked, reborn. The sun, artificial and flickering, rose over Infernum Station's lower domes like a dying god. The people of the station, once drones and forgotten souls, stood tall now, armed, alert, ready. Every corridor, every maintenance shaft, every decommissioned cargo bay had become a front line. And at the center of it all stood Jace Steelwind and Tiona Thorncrest, bonded not just by blood, love, and rebellion, but by the nexus core that now thrummed between their very hearts. "They're massing," Sarma reported, her voice taut with controlled adrenaline. "Commandos regrouped at Plaza East Level 6. They've got dropships, tanks, null field barriers." "Let them come," Jace said. He stood on a repurposed platform overlooking the square, now a makeshift rebel command center. His armor was no longer just blue-gold. It shimmered with shifting patterns, alive, reactive, almost organic. Tiona stood beside him in matching resonance, her skin glowing with constellations, eyes like supernovae. "I thought you were dead," she whispered. He looked at her hand brushing hers. "I was, until you called me back." She smiled faintly. "You're welcome." The first wave hit hard. Void commandos, black armored monsters trained to breach cities, destroy insurgencies, silent systems. They dropped from stealth ships, like metal raindrops striking the plaza with bone-shaking force. And then they stopped. Jace stepped into view. The air warped around him. The core vibrated with the memory of every warrior who had ever touched it, thousands of lives, thousands of deaths. He raised his hand. A blast of energy, silent, invisible, rippled outward. Not destruction, disruption. The commandos froze. Their weapons malfunctioned, implants scrambled. Targeting software collapsed under the weight of quantum noise. Then the rebels charged, led by Lena with her cybernetic gaze. Darrow with his flamethrower modified from waste converters. Sarma with a repurposed enforcer cannon balanced on her shoulder. But the commandos weren't completely undone. The elite among them reconfigured, switching to analog backups, fallback protocols. They surged forward. Tiona met them first. Her body moved like water laced with lightning. Every motion a dance of death. She twisted mid-air, landed on a commando's shoulders, and drove her heel through his neural core. Jace was fire. He struck with fists that shattered armor, eyes that saw trajectory arcs before bullets moved. He redirected plasma bolts with his bare hands. The core shaped his form, his armor, shifting to absorb, reflect, retaliate. One commando tried to speak, by order of... Jace grabbed his faceplate. "Your order just died." He crushed it. The tide turned. From dozens to hundreds to thousands. Citizens poured from buildings lifting makeshift weapons, old pipes, reprogrammed drones, cables crackling with stolen energy. A drone relay station exploded, sending cascading data across enemy networks. A hydroponics dome shattered, flooding enforcer supply lines. Even children armed with repulsor wrenches and old mech toys joined the ranks. The station was rising. The system was falling. But the hegemony wasn't done. From above came silence, and then the roar of the void. A carrier-class warship decloaked in low orbit. Sleek, black, covered in shifting glyphs. On its hull, the sigil of the Hegemony Core Directive. "They're going to obliterate the station," Tiona said. "They'd rather turn it into debris than lose it," Jace replied. The ship charged its primary weapon. Jace turned to his people. "Get underground, now." "No time," Sarma warned. "That beam will pierce everything." He looked at Tiona. "I have to link fully," he said. "All of it. Core, mind, identity." She went pale. "You'll dissolve. The others, they lost themselves." "I won't," he said, "because you'll still be here." She cupped his face. "Come back to me. Always." Jace ascended the tower above the plaza, his armor extending into a lattice of energy across the structure. The Nexus core flared bright enough to blind. Light exploded from his chest. His thoughts fractured. He became the battlefield. He felt every rebel, every drop of blood, every hope. The beam fired, and Jace became the shield. A massive quantum field erupted from the station, blue gold and indestructible. It caught the beam mid-descent, warping it, twisting it, and then reversing it. The warship exploded in orbit, torn apart by its own fury. And in the moment that followed, silence. Not one word, not one cheer, just reverence. Then Tiona ran. She found him collapsed, body smoking, armor flickering. He was still breathing. Barely. They laid him in the old server sanctum, surrounded by those who believed because he made belief real. Sarma wept beside his form. Lena removed her eye enhancements in silent respect. Darrow laid down his weapon. Tiona took his hand. You gave them a future, she whispered. His eyes fluttered open. No, he rasped. We did. She smiled through her tears. The core. It didn't consume you. He squeezed her fingers. It became me. Outside Infernum Station lit up not with fire but with lanterns, with music, with mourning, with freedom. The death god had fallen and risen again. Warmth. It was the first thing Jace felt, not pain, not weight, just warmth. Gentle sunlight poured through the wide circular windows, bathing him in soft golden light. Birds chirped outside, real ones, not the recorded loops of Infernum's hydrodomes. When he opened his eyes, the world didn't blur. Everything was clear. Tiona sat beside him, her violet skin radiant in the sunlight, a simple white garment wrapped around her figure. She looked peaceful, whole. But her eyes, her impossibly deep, cosmic eyes, were red-rimmed from tears. You're awake, she whispered, voice cracking. Yeah, Jace blinked. Either that or I died, and this is the most beautiful afterlife in the galaxy. She laughed, then immediately wiped her eyes. You almost did. He tried to sit up, muscles stiff, bones, humming with something alive. Where are we? Sanctuary, she said. A hidden Nixian outpost, one of the few still untouched by the hegemony. We brought you here after the warship fell. How long? 3 weeks. Jace looked down at his hands. The blue-gold filaments beneath his skin still glimmered faintly, but they were quieter now, less chaotic. I thought I burned everything out. You nearly did, she said softly. You used every nanite, every thread of energy. You stopped the beam. You saved the station. He leaned back into the bed. Guess I'm due for a nap. She smiled. You've become more than just a host, Jace. You're a living core now. When you healed me, you created something new, a permanent link, a bond. His gaze locked on hers. You mean I'm part of it now too, she said. We both are. You bled your nanites into me, rewrote my cellular matrix. I'm synced to you permanently. He swallowed. That's intense. She stepped closer, brushing her fingers along his jaw. And perfect. Outside the window, the jungle rustled with wind. Jace could see buildings nestled among the trees, curved organic structures made of living material and grown crystal. It felt pure. Tiona, he said slowly, what happens now? She stood beside him as he limped out onto a balcony overlooking the settlement. Rebels, now citizens, walked below. Engineers helped build new infrastructure. Children laughed. The old caste markings had been stripped away. Infernum is no longer a prison, she said. It's the heart of something new. Jace watched a group hoist a flag, half golden star, half violet spiral. And the others, he asked. 12 more stations have risen since your broadcast. 3 declared independence. The core data is spreading across systems. Vortex's lies are unraveling. And him, Tiona's smile faded, vanished. But the council collapsed after you aired the truth. They're scrambling now, panicking. Good. He turned to her. But you're not done, are you? She hesitated. No, she admitted. The timeline. It's still unstable. The quantum disturbance that brought me here, it'll reopen soon. A rift. I was supposed to return once your survival was ensured. Jace froze. You're leaving. She stepped toward him quickly. I don't have to. But if I stay, it risks quantum collapse. Multiple timelines could fold. I could destabilize everything. He stared out over the trees, chest tight. So we save one future, but let the other burn. She reached for his hand. Unless we do something insane. He looked at her. Insane is kind of our thing. She smiled. If we both go linked as we are, we create a closed loop, a stable time bridge. The core syncs our consciousness across dimensions. We could go back together. He nodded slowly. Back to the original timeline. "And finish what we started," she said. "Then we leave Infernum in safe hands." He turned toward the horizon, eyes blazing. "But we're not running. We're expanding." 3 days later, a rift opened in the sky above Sanctuary, an iridescent spiral of light folding in on itself, humming like a chorus of stars. Jace stood with Tiona at the edge of the stone platform. Around them, Sarma Lena Darrow and dozens of others gathered. "You sure about this?" Sarma asked. "No," Jace said. "But when have we ever been sure of anything?" Lena smirked. "You've got a legacy here now." "You are the death god of Infernum," Darrow added. "Try not to get yourself killed again." Jace nodded. He turned to Tiona. "Ready." She took his hand. "Always." They stepped into the rift. Reality folded. Quantum filaments spiraled around them. Memories, timelines, possibilities dancing like galaxies. And then silence. Then breath. Then stars. They emerged not into fire but into a new future, one shaped by truth, one yet to be written. And they were ready to write it in fire blood and quantum light. The re-entry nearly tore their minds apart. Jace and Tiona fell through spirals of shifting timelines, past versions of themselves, flickering in and out of view. In one they were captives, in another rulers. In one impossible version they had never met. But in every iteration, one thing remained unchanged: connection. They emerged in a shattering burst of energy, collapsing onto the steel floor of a cold, sterile chamber deep within the hegemony's central citadel. Tiona was the first to stand. Her glowing hair flowed with static eyes brighter than ever. "Same planet," she whispered. "Same city. But it's not the same year." Jace rose beside her. "How far back?" She touched the quantum node on her wrist. 3 years before the fall of Infernum." His eyes widened. "Before I was ever chosen. Before they even created the first core pilot." The implications sank in like lead. They weren't just early, they were now the cause. They moved fast. Using stolen identities and Nexus core camouflage, Jace and Tiona infiltrated the Foundation archives hidden beneath the Citadel's throne tower. Inside, databanks pulsed with forbidden knowledge. Names of potential core candidates, plans for galactic suppression, the locations of rebel cells yet to awaken, and worst of all, early footage of Project Deicide, a contingency to collapse all Nexus cores should any one of them rebel. "This is it," Jace muttered, copying files to a flash shard. "This is how they kept us leashed." "We change this," Tiona said, her grip tight on his arm. "We win everywhere." But the wall shuddered. The hegemony had found them. Dozens of red-armored enforcers swarmed the archives, unleashing cryoblasts and destabilizer rounds. Jace took 3 shots before retaliating. The core inside him flared to life. Armor grew over his body like a second skin, blue and gold and alive. Tiona spun into the fray, dancing like a storm given form. Together, they held the chamber. Not one enforcer left breathing. They escaped into the streets of the capital, an impossible blend of towering spires, digital skies, and choking smog. The hegemony's voice rang from every speaker. "Attention, citizens traders of quantum class designation have been sighted. Turn over all unauthorized bioforms." But the people were watching and recognizing. Jace wasn't a nobody here. He was the face of what was to come. Rebels appeared. Whisper networks activated. Hidden transmitters flashed. "They know," Tiona whispered. "Even this early. They remember your image. The myth already exists." "We don't need to build a movement," Jace replied. "We just have to ignite it." 2 days later, the skies turned red. Jace and Tiona broadcast the stolen archive data across all known systems. They hijacked the galactic relay network, overriding every official stream. Holoscreens shimmered in marketplaces, homes, military bases. Jace's face appeared scarred and blazing. "My name is Jace Steelwind. I was supposed to die for the hegemony's comfort. But I survived, and now I remember everything." He exposed Project Deicide, the timeline tampering, the slaughter of entire bloodlines to suppress rebellion. And then Tiona's voice rang out. "I came from your future," she said. "I came to rewrite it." The galaxy listened, and something ancient stirred. Hope. The response was immediate. Rebel factions synchronized. Old generals returned. Forgotten races reawakened their fleets. Children painted stars on their walls and whispered the name Steel Wind like a spell. The hegemony retaliated. They launched their elite, the Obsidian Vanguard. Each warrior was a failed core host, twisted, burned, driven mad by rejection. And leading them was Vortex, still alive, still wearing his false face. "You can't rewrite Time Boy," Vortex sneered, meeting Jace atop the broken spires of Maelor Prime. Jace smiled. "Watch me." The final battle began. 1,000 rebel ships launched across 12 systems. Tiona hijacked the quantum nexus fields, linking the minds of every rebel pilot for perfect coordination. Jace fought Vortex one-on-one across broken moons, collapsing citadels, and void bridges laced with reality tears. "You're not the future," Vortex spat. "No," Jace said, grabbing his enemy's throat. "I'm your extinction." He threw him into the singularity, and Vortex did not return. When the dust settled, the galaxy was quiet. For the first time in generations, truly quiet. No orders from the hegemony. No lies. Only rebuilding. And memory. Jace stood beside Tiona on a hill overlooking the twin moons of Aria Prime. Children played with old rebel helmets. Farmers sang songs with coded verses. Lovers kissed under starlight, free from fear. "We did it," she whispered. He nodded. "Not just us. Everyone." Still she teased, brushing her fingers against his. "I seem to recall someone swearing to give me a galaxy." "I gave you 12 systems," he smirked. "And I'm still building." They kissed under the stars. Two survivors, two rebels, two hearts beating in rhythm with a future they had forged together. Across time, across war, across love.